Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, our great friend, Pro-Life. We're going to get to you in a minute. First, out to Washington, D.C., Jason Pyle joins us from FreedomWorks. Jason, it's been a while. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing, Kevin?
Not bad. We rely on the good people at FreedomWorks to keep us updated on what those rascals in Washington are doing while folks here in Idaho are working, trying to take care of their families and working for the weekend and living a better life. So let's start right now. When we're talking a lot about the debt, we're talking about national big issues that we kind of put off to the side. How are our lawmakers handling the debt and the deficit, sir?
Not well, to put it bluntly. Last year in February, Congress passed a 2-year budget agreement that busted the spending caps by $296 billion over 2 years. When they passed an appropriations bill this year, they spent $100 billion above the levels established in that budget last year. So they're spending more. They're adding more to the budget deficit. The debt is continuing to rise. So that's the bad news. And then looking out in the out years, even more bad news is Social Security. There's benefit cuts coming if they don't do anything about Social Security, and there's cuts to Medicare coming if they don't do anything to reform that program. So, we're going to be in just, probably 20 years spending as much as a European welfare state at the federal level. So that's all concerning stuff, and really starts your morning off with some bright news. But look, there's reasons for optimism. We know of a couple things that are in the works to proposals that would at least address federal spending in some respects. Senator Rand Paul introduced his budget. It's called the Pennies Plan Balanced Budget. It would cut 2 pennies off of every dollar of federal spending over the next 5 years and bring the budget into balance. And so that's a positive step. He does hope to bring it to the floor soon, and we know of another bill that's being introduced hopefully this week that would cap federal spending as a percentage of what we call potential GDP, which is more stable than regular GDP because it assumes you're at full employment. That bill is very similar to something it's actually emulating a European policy. Switzerland passed what we call a debt break back in 2001. It was Switzerland being a direct democracy. 85% of voters actually approved this. And so this bill would emulate that in some respect. It's not completely like it, but it's very similar. So we expect both House and Senate versions of that bill to be introduced. And those are things that we're going to be pushing for at FreedomWorks on the Hill, trying to get as many co-sponsors as possible. Having Democrats control the House is not optimal. So we won't get a floor vote on it, but it's something that we're laying out there for a bright line for the future. Jason,
on one hand, we've heard this story before about Social Security and other programs, and the federal government has rushed to its aid. Yet, on the other hand, we have young folks wanting socialism, even though they don't know the ramifications or the costs of socialism.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's frustrating. I grew up in a time. I'm 38 years old, so I was 8 years old when the Berlin Wall came down, and I was a couple years older when the Soviet Union fell. And I grew up in a school that thankfully taught me about the dangers of communism. I learned about the gulags. I read Solzhenitsyn when I was a kid, and learned about the totalitarianism of communist regimes, and indeed socialism as well. I mean, look at what's going on in Venezuela. If you want socialism, that's your future. Price controls, shortages, toilet paper shortages, food shortages, all that stuff. It's unfortunately the people who are growing up today, and even people who are maybe 10 years younger than me, don't remember these things. And it's and they're completely oblivious to the outside world. And they look at Canada and the UK, and they say, well, they have free healthcare. Well, no, they don't. I mean, that healthcare is very expensive, and if you need a specialized treatment, there is a waiting list. The UK, their national health service, actually had the highest waiting list in its history last July. So I mean, if you could die on that waiting list, and indeed there are stories of that happening. In the United States, we have private health insurance coverage. Am I the biggest fan of the private health insurance mechanism we have? No, I'm not. I think we should encourage cash-based system and people going to the doctor paying cash, which is cheaper than going through insurance. But socialism, the elimination of private health insurance, is not the way to go.
Jason Pye joining us, Freedom Works, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. How fragile is our economic system if we do not continue? Well, if we go down the path we are with the most spending we've had ever, number one,
yeah.
And number two, these debt and deficits continue to accumulate.
Well, look, it's not sustainable. I think Paul Ryan, we can criticize him all day because he oversaw that spending increase last year. So he deserves criticism for that. But I will give him this. He recognized the problems that we had, and he called the crisis that we're facing the most predictable crisis in our history. I mean, we know it's coming. We know that we're going to face something similar to a Greece-style debt crisis. In Congress, there is no will in Congress to address this problem. There are certainly some who want to. You can point to Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Justin Amash, Thomas Massey. Those guys want to do something, and many others like them. Andy Biggs is another one who want to cut spending and who want to get our priorities in order. Unfortunately, they're just the minority. Some talk a good game about that stuff. They go out there and say, it means it's every 2 or 6 years, depending on the member, they go out and they campaign on reducing spending and cutting waste and fraud and abuse. But the thing is, they never vote that way. It's really frustrating. And Democrats, of course, are completely oblivious to it. It was the chairman of the House Budget Committee, John Yarmuth, who recently said that, does anybody still talk about deficits and debts? That's like, so 9 years ago when the Tea Party was rising to prominence. That's how members of Congress view this. And it's incredibly frustrating. And we mentioned Social Security a second ago. I mean, Democrats are so oblivious to it. Rather than actually reforming Social Security in a way that promotes economic growth and prosperity and opportunity, they are trying to expand Social Security. They even want to raise FICA taxes. Currently, the FICA tax is 12.4%. They want to raise it to 14.8%. If you're a sole proprietor, you pay that whole amount. That's how tone deaf they are, and how completely out of touch with their constituents and completely tone deaf to economics. So they are. I mean, these are policies in addition to a 70% marginal tax rate that will hurt growth. It will slow our economy. It will lead to fewer opportunities for people, especially young people who are coming out of college without an ability to find a good job or a job that was in their major. That's the trend line we're on right now because nobody's taking the threats before us seriously.
Jason, when we take a look at the Trump presidency, Freedom Works nonpartisan group, how do you view it?
I mean, look, I'd say the president has been very good on taxes and regulation with a couple caveats. We're not real happy with a couple HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, and Food and Drug Administration regulations, particularly as it relates to price controls on prescription drugs. We're importing socialist price controls, controls from other socialist countries. And then, the FDA vaping regulation. I personally I started vaping to stop smoking. It's a healthier alternative, and that the FDA seems to want to take that away from me. So with those caveats, everything else has been phenomenal. We're talking about $33 billion in reduced cost to consumers and businesses over 10 years through this administration's deregulatory agenda. Tax cuts, we know what that's done for the economy, more jobs, more opportunity for folks. Spending, they've been terrible. I mean, the president signed that budget agreement that I was talking about. He signed appropriations bills that spend higher than those spending levels. Criminal justice, which is something we very much support here at Freedom Works, great. He signed the First Step Back in the law. We got to still implement the law, which is something they're working on. I was fortunate enough to go to the White House on Monday and watch the president's speech on the First Step Act. I mean, overall, like I give him a B-. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. We're things are going well, but there's a lot of cause for concern the longer we look out. And, there's some things we got to get right. And I don't know how serious, especially as it relates to entitlement spending, Social Security and Medicare, how serious this White House takes that.
Jason, it's been too long since we've had you on. We love FreedomWorks. If people want more information, what can they do?
Check out freedomworks.org. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Ty. There's also a link on my Twitter page. It's for a Capitol Hill update. If you click that link, you can sign up for it. I send it out every week when Congress is in session. It tells you exactly what's going on the Hill for the week.
Thank you, Jason. Take care.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care.
Our great friend Jason Pye joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's go back to the phones. The Newsmaker line. Pro-Life joining us. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Well, hey, you were talking about urban renewal.
Urban renewal.
Yeah, well, see, government shouldn't even be involved in that. So, I mean, 100 years ago, nobody'd ever even thought that a government could take land in the interior of a city or any part of the city and then through eminent domain and then reprocess it to private investors. Eminent domain is only for the proper use of the essential use of government. So that would mean that a library isn't essential. A sports stadium isn't. You couldn't use any of those things for urban renewal if you were going to look at it in the right way. And urban renewal should not even be a government word. But anyway, so we're in big trouble. But I was just thinking this morning that the one thing that the legislature could really do if they were going to help the life issue, and that would be in the public schools, they would have a mandatory course that would discuss when life begins. And that would really cause a fuss, and I'm going to suggest that to Idaho Chooses Life, Idaho Right to Life, and the legislators. I think we need to have that. Now I want to say this, that faith in Jesus Christ and free will, you can do a lot. You have to have free will. You can't just say God's going to take care of things. You have to use your free will to go out and decide what's right and implement that. Well, anyway, Kevin, I like your radio program. It's the best. And
well, look, we're trying to do that. We're the keepers of the faith, brother.
Yeah, and that's so nice that people talk about Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, the Holy Ghost. That's where it's really at. And God works through our conscience. If your conscience tells you something, I mean, you can get a perverted conscience by I guess not following your conscience. But you need to decide for yourself what's right and wrong, not listen to the professors down at BSU.
God bless you, Pro-Life.
All right, we'll see you.
Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. And a note to the terrorists, we stand firm. Why are you laughing, Dave Burnett?
You haven't got any money to give him anyway.
We are not. We don't deal with the insurgents.
How much do you want? I'll give it. I'll pay.
KIDO Talk Radio. Yes. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin.
What's every Kevin?
And repeating some of the top local stories, the 4 suspects accused of raping that 18-year-old woman in Kuna, they will go on trial in August. When you think of that situation, obviously we'll continue to cover that, take your phone calls on that topic as well. I was explaining this story to Mrs. Miller the other day, and I'm always a big proponent of people being innocent until proven guilty. If you are a conservative, if you are a person who believes in the system of justice, which it's the best system that money can buy, you can't always believe the overwhelming negative stuff when it doesn't fall to the narrative that you'd like. So here you have these 4 young people from other countries here in the United States of America. And so the story goes, this young lady in Kuna met one of these people on the social media platform, what was it, either the Snapchat or the Instagram. And young people, as they do, again, were very limited to the published reports that have been linked out through court documents and through independent reporting. Most notably, what we're going off of is the newspaper published reports. And so what we hear from the published reports, we want to be careful because we're talking about not only the family of the victim, we're talking about the families of the accused. The 4 suspects who allegedly raped a woman in Kuna all appeared in court, maintained their innocence, and a 4-week jury trial was scheduled for August. The defendants are Elijah Lupango, Sweetie Lamanano, Malongo Rashidi, and a minor who's being tried as an adult. They all appeared before the 4th U.S. District Judge Michael Reardon with their defense attorneys. The suspects are accused of, and they describe the type of sexual assault or rape. I guess there are different types of rape. An 18-year-old woman in a parked car on February 7th, according to court records. All are charged with felony rape or were indicted by a grand jury. Yamanda Bello is accused of reaching out to the alleged victim via the social media platform to hang out, and sex was never discussed. The woman consented to the sex with Yamabalo initially, but then said 3 times, authorities previously said, no. The other men are accused of putting something over her face, and then, well, we'll just leave it at that. You know, and apparently these folks are new to this country, and again, I don't see that in the story. Let's see. While I understand that each of the defendants and their families are here legally, a conviction would put their immigration status at grave risk, according to the judge. Well, you have to take a look at this and say to yourself, how do you prevent this from happening? How do you prevent this from happening where, look, if you're an American, if you're a foreign national, if you're an immigrant, if you're seeking asylum, you come into this country, you got to do what your relatives did, your predecessors. You stick your nose to the grindstone. And without judging the victim, without judging the accused, let me be clear in this case that when it comes to meeting up with people, and I deal with this with the limited number of people that I interact with, and I limit those numbers of people because society today, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe we all need to go out and just try and tell these people that you don't, quote unquote, meet people and all of a sudden discussing the most intimate things that human beings can do to one another. And you don't bring your friends or your associates to this as well. And again, without judgment and with ultimate respect to that 18-year-old little girl that we pray for, and people are innocent until proven guilty, there are bad people in this world. And if the accusations are true and the grand jury came back, of course, they say a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. You just don't do that to people. Whether you're here originally or you're moving into the neighborhood, you don't do that to people. And just like we will not bow to the insurgents, we will not bow to the terrorists. You got to get your backup for your software and stuff. And you got to make sure that if you're meeting a total stranger, you don't do it isolated from people that care about you. Look, I could talk about these apps, and I have people that gleefully will tell me about their indiscretions, why they come to good old K. Millie. I have no idea. And they flip and they go, oh, look, it's like ordering from an app. But instead of ordering beef fried rice, you're ordering a person. This is why we don't leave. This is why we wake up on the right side. This is why we ask God, Lord, help us reach them. This is why we are here. Whether you're listening to this or you're just a good person that loves God, Jesus Christ, and wants to reach out to young people to prevent this from happening. Believe our gimmick? You're darn right we do. Because children are such a precious gift from our Lord that we have to protect them. We have to show them the right way. We have to be the alternative to the smut that's emanating on the internet, on the airwaves, on the phones. Well, we can't do it. We're outgunned. No, we're not. We've got the Lord on our side. That truly is the right side. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller, in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. Before we get to Liberty Linda, we go to our great friend, Senator Crapo. Senator Crapo, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
Well, let's talk. Earlier we were talking about your favorite topic, unfortunately, is the debt and the deficit, which isn't getting a lot of attention. Federal spending, and look, if you were in charge of this, it wouldn't be where it is. It's at an all-time high, sir. So what are the consequences of this for folks here in Idaho or across the country?
Well, the consequences are just as we have been saying for so long. They're just getting more and more real. And that is that as we are unable to handle the debt and the increasing interest costs, we lose competitiveness in the marketplace. And more of the federal spending has to go to dealing with our debt rather than focusing on things like our national security and reducing the overall spending levels.
Senator, can you spell it out for us? Because you know me, I'm not a souffle guy. I'm a ham and egger, if you will. So what does that really mean as far as impacting programs like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security as people get older?
Well, Social Security is a separate budget entirely, and although it is screaming toward insolvency, it's not impacted by the excess federal spending in other programs. It's impacted by frankly, the instability of the fund itself. So that one's separate. We do need to fix it. But as far as Medicaid, Medicare, and every other federal program, and I just mentioned our national defense, we simply cannot spend the necessary money to deal with those entitlements and with our national security needs. We need to reform those as well. And, our tax bill that we passed last year, we have seen, it was claimed that was going to increase the deficit. The reality is that that's actually helped to reduce the deficit by generating so much economic growth. But we aren't going to be able to outgrow this. We are going to be able to help it by strengthening and growing our economy. Our economy has leaped about 50% in its growth. What I mean by that, it's gone from about 2% to 3% growth. And that's a huge impact. But we've got to control our spending, or we're going to see not only these federal programs that are so critical that the funding on them is going to impact people, but we're going to see impacts in the marketplace, slower wage growth, slower job growth, and so forth. And we can't continue to keep propping it up by just dealing with it with our tax policy.
So what would be the solution?
Well, the solution, there's a lot of solutions out there. There are a number of reforms. To get in the weeds is kind of complicated, but there are reforms to the way we deliver medicine, the reforms we tried to do when we tried to repeal Obamacare and change the way that our healthcare system works, would have actually maintained the quality of healthcare, maintained the benefits people are receiving, and reduced the cost. So we've got to do some of those things. The second thing that one of the other plans is to simply put a cap on spending. For example, there's the penny plan. That is, if we were simply to take 1%, 1 penny out of every dollar, out of every budget, we're confident that our spending would not, the benefit programs would not be negatively impacted. But that 1%, that penny program, would help us to start getting our track focusing on moving toward balance rather than continuing to grow, as you indicated at the outset, it is now doing.
Senator Crapo joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's talk a little Social Security. It seems to happen every 20 years. It gets ready to be insolvent. we all hand wring, we all say we're going to do something, and then we kick the can down the road. Again, one of your areas of expertise, you care about the folks. Your thoughts on saving Social Security once again, sir?
Well, first of all, what Americans need to realize is that the fund is going to go basically belly up. Let me put it this way. It's going to go insolvent in somewhere in the neighborhood of around 2033, which is, 15 or 20 years from now, 15 years from now. So people who are seeking to retire or going on their Social Security benefits at that time, people who are already on Social Security benefits, or people who are hoping to have some Social Security benefits when they do retire are going to see about a 30% automatic cut in everything in order for the program to remain viable. We need to stop that from happening. So what needs to be done? There are a lot of different pieces or suggested solutions. I think the best plans are to take a little bit of each. One is to increase the retirement age. People are living far longer than they were when the program was first set up. And to just increase the retirement age by 1 month every 2 years gives a pretty significant piece of the solution. And then cap that out at like a several year, two years increase over 24 years, 1 month every 2 years. That really helps. The other thing is we could control the rate of growth. Right now, Social Security benefits actually, in real dollars, grow faster than the economy does. And so we could have the rate of the Social Security benefits equal the rate of the growth of the economy. So no one would lose anything, but the program would get a little bit more stable. Other things that could be done is people who are extremely wealthy when they retire and who make, during their retirement, make $200,000 or $300,000 a year or more, could have a reduction in their Social Security benefits. That would also help. There are also proposals to simply increase the Social Security taxes. That would also help. I don't particularly like tax increases, and I don't think that it's fair to say to anybody that they can't have the Social Security they paid for during their lifetimes. But each of these solutions are pieces of solutions that could be used, and the program could be made stable if we tried a little bit of each of them.
Senator Mike Crapo joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Senator, let's talk a little bit about the Mueller report. You've got the House now saying they're going to subpoena campaign aides. They're going to subpoena everybody. You've got the Democrats saying they want the entire Mueller report, which you can't do, as you know, sir, and everybody else. That you've got grand jury testimony. You've got national security issues as well. Being a decision maker at the highest levels in Washington, D.C., can you take us into that epicenter of the results of the Mueller report, sir?
Yes, well, you have to go back a little bit, I think, to clearly understand what's happening now. And what I mean by that is recall that when the Democrats demanded this investigation take place and then demanded that it be allowed to finish, that was done. And I said, yes, we need to let it finish now that it's started. And it did finish, uninterfered with by the president or anyone else. And now the Democrats are saying they don't like the fact that the result of the investigation was that there was no collusion by the president with regard to the Russians, and that there were no charges of any kind brought with regard to collusion or obstruction. So now the Democrats are saying, well, we don't accept that. We don't like the report now, and we're going to go redo it ourselves. I think this is just politics on their part, and frankly, I believe that we really ought to get past it. I also think that the public is probably not going to respond well to the Democrat effort in the House trying to just continue to pursue this angle. So we'll see. In terms of the reality, you said it right. The entire report cannot be released because innocent people and other people's reputations could be hurt by the information that is included in there. There is national security concerns and so forth, but a lot of that can be redacted, and I think that a significant amount of it can be made public, and I hope that they do make it public because I do think that the American public should be allowed to see the essence of what the report says.
Senator Crapo with us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Senator, you're a person that likes to work with folks on the other side, and that's a good thing in Washington. What's the atmosphere like when you're talking to Chuck Schumer and those folks? Are they willing to compromise? Are they willing to work for the? I mean, you'll tell us the truth for the greater good of the country, sir.
Well, the answer is sort of both. We still have a lot of bipartisanship and do get a lot of things done at sort of what I would call the easier level. A lot of the kinds of important, but nevertheless non-controversial type things are getting done. We've done some major veterans legislation and things like that. But on most of the really big ticket items, like the reforms we've talked about previously here on this program about our healthcare reforms, our tax policy reforms, our national security reforms, the immigration issues in terms of what's happening at our borders, and frankly, on trying to stop the president from being able to stand up his administration through obstruction of his nominees on the Senate floor. That's full-blown partisanship in full gear right now, and there is no willingness to work together. And let me just give you a statistic. President Trump has faced 128 filibuster votes in the first 2 years of his presidency, which really slows down the Senate's ability to deal with other issues and slows down his ability to take charge of the administration like any president should be allowed to do. President Obama had 12 of those votes, and the other three presidents before him had a total of about 12 between them. So you see that the obstruction being thrown at President Trump is like 5 times greater than the previous 4 presidents combined. And that kind of obstruction is what we deal with on a daily basis. By the way, we are going to change the rules in terms of how long it takes to get past a filibuster. And I think we'll do that possibly today, but I think sometime this week. We're just going to stop this obstruction by making it so that instead of taking about 2 days for every filibuster, we only have to take a couple of hours for every filibuster and just get on with the business of doing the Senate's work.
Senator, anything else you'd like to share with us? We sure appreciate you.
Well, I just want to say hello to everyone there. I appreciate this opportunity to visit with you today. Let's do it again soon.
Yes, sir. Take care, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. There we have it. Liberty Linda joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. You know, in the Old West, they'd cut the phone lines, and then they'd cut everything else, and you couldn't get the telegraph going. And I know you were very worried about us, Liberty Linda.
Yes, because I haven't been able to get on the stream yesterday and today to get into your show, so I thought I'll just call in this morning. I don't have talking points, Kevin. But anyway, I thought, well, I can call in still. So anyway, I say yay to Senator Crapo. I believe the John Birch Society gave him a very high rating last year. So he's doing good work for us up there. And so we're proud of him. And thank you for having him on. You know, that Kevin, let's go to regarding kissing Joe Biden.
Exactly. Would you let Joe Biden kiss you?
Well, no, I wouldn't like it, and I did think it was inappropriate. But, they just really want to get him out. They do not want him in. He's too conservative. He doesn't have the radical agenda as the others. To them, he looks like a Republican or something. And so that's what I think. They just want to get him out.
Well, they want to take him out, and they're calling him Kissin' Joe.
Yeah, I know, Kissin' Joe. That's quite a handle to have.
He kisses the girls and makes them cry.
We have to wait and see what's going to happen with this. As I said, he has name recognition.
You've heard of that song, Cotton Eye Joe? You got Kissin' Joe.
It's Kissin' Joe. Well, that's quite a name for a future president, which, we know that Trump is going to win, regardless who they put up. So anyway, that's what I think. That's my opinion. And now let's go on to our wonderful president. Do they want to keep the border open so we can have avocados, Kevin? Or should we close the borders and save our country? Now, which one is it?
Close the
Avocados?
borders and save the country.
Yeah, because, we have the selection right now. That's what our choice is. Have avocados and oranges, like they're saying, leave the border open for that. Or we have to close it to save our country. I think the latter is the best. Let's save our country. And that's basically what I had to say about that.
Well, I just wanted to let you know we're still here. I know they got us, but we've circled the wagons, so hopefully we'll still be here.
Is it because your show is just too good, too conservative, and too wonderful? You have too many wonderful callers that I couldn't get on the stream? Is that what it is? I think your show's too good. That's what I think.
Well, the insurgents have us in their crosshairs.
I know it. And do we have something to talk about every day? I mean, we have so much to talk about. It's unbelievable. Anyway, love your show and love that we can get out our feelings on your show and still love our country.
Well,
we love it.
We love you, Liberty Linda, and sorry about the stream and the app.
Yeah, well, I'll have to get a new canoe to go down the stream, I guess.
They hit the telegraph lines.
Right. Okay, Kevin. You have an absolutely wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Get this, the devious little libs are now going to subpoena everybody associated with Donald Trump. What will they think of next? We'll tell you. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, after Glenn Beck, Dave Ramsey, Sean Hannity, Lars Larson. KIDO Talk Radio time, 8:56. Traffic and weather together.
What's Eric Gebert?
And Kevin Miller in the morning, repeating our top story now. You've got the devious little libs. They're going after the president, or as we like to call them, sore losers. Believe it or not, this just in. I'm sure Glenn and Sean and Lars will be talking about it. House Democrats poised to use subpoena power, not only looking at the Mueller report, but now looking at this situation where they're going to go after everybody associated with the Trump campaign. That's right. Let this be a lesson to you, that if you're a good person, and let's face it, in politics, we need all the good people that we can get. Right? You know the old saying, why don't we have good people involved in politics? They're too busy enjoying life, having a good time. Why in the world would we not have good people involved in politics? See how the devious little libs go after good people. Donald Trump had a life. Donald Trump was doing his own thing. He didn't need to do this, but he saw a need to save America. Now you've got the new talking point. The devious little libs subpoenaing the Mueller report. They're going to put good people up before the House Judiciary Committee, the House Oversight Committee, the House You-Know-What Committee, and force people to get attorneys and try and charge them with lying to Congress. Here is the line the libs are going to use. What is Barr hiding? He's not hiding anything. How does a great republic ruled by a constitution become a banana republic? We're seeing it right now. And the media, instead of being the arbiter of truth, is the echo chamber. The echo chamber of the Democratic talking points. That's where we are. And that's what we're up against. And that's why we sure appreciate you every day listening to this program, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, and saying, you know something? We've got to support the president. So the lesson, what they're trying to do is that they can't beat us legally. Let's get rid of the Electoral College. Let's bring everybody involved in the campaign before Congress. Kind of like they used to do under Rasputin. Well, we're no Rasputin here. Graham Maya, outstanding job. God bless everyone. Thank you for staying with us. Good morning.